Let's go.
Who we've got.
Let's go.
We got our guy, Field Yates.
What's
going on?
What's
so great to have you here.
How are you? Good to see you. How you doing?
What's up?
Long time no see. How you doing?
Man, anytime I talk to you, Field, it's like I'm just talking to another Colorado guy. I mean, you know about All City, you know about DNVR, and your wife's family's out in Colorado,
yeah,
so
my
it's
wife
like your second home?
Raised in Colorado, so I feel like I've got, I don't know, I guess probably not, I was going to say 10% Colorado in me, but by the time, in 20 years, I'll say that I was also raised in Colorado, and I'll say that our kids will be raised in Colorado, so yeah. Every time we get out there, it's a lot of fun. So,
oh, man, I love it. And, we are just trying to figure out the Broncos quarterback situation.
Yep. You guys aren't going to tell me what's happening?
No, you're going to tell us.
I was kind of opening. Oh, you know what? So, there's actually, I think, actually sort of a fairly narrow range of outcomes for them, right? I mean, they cast their die when they made the decision to bench Russ, and obviously they didn't. I mean, they did not deactivate him, so they weren't entirely protecting against injury. If Jared had gotten hurt, they would have brought Russ back in. But they sort of were telling us what they're going to do. I mean, the fact that they have now both publicly acknowledged the idea of altering the contract for the injury guarantees, like, we know where this is headed. It's going to be a painful one. There's just no two ways about it. Like, there's no good way to remove the Russell Wilson contract from the books and just be like, salary cap solid. It's going to take a year to basically get over that. But we've seen teams. I mean, the Rams got off the Jared Goff contract and won the Super Bowl that year. And obviously, Jared's had a great season, great run with Detroit. But that was a tough pill to swallow. Philadelphia did the same thing with Carson Wentz. You can bounce back. What's interesting for Denver, though, is that because of the salary cap ramifications for Russ and because of the big spending this past offseason, they don't strike me as the team that's going to have the ability to, if there is a big-name quarterback to sign in free agency, spend big there, right? There's only so much money that you can allocate to a position, even the most important one in sports, in quarterback. So it kind of brings me to the 12th pick in the draft. They got 6 picks total, obviously no second-round picks. So when you have 6 total picks, and you go from 12 to, what is that, probably like 75 is their next pick, 77, 78, somewhere in that range. History tells us, right, 78 is not where you find your quarterback. It's at 12, right? So my forecast right now, and not to spoil my mock draft that comes out in 8 days, is 12 will be a quarterback, right? I mean, I am preparing for all of your very loyal fans to get mad and say there's no way these kids are worth it, and you can't, that's a reach. I would like to hear the alternative. Now, if you want to move back in the draft by 6 slots and pick up some extra ammo, that would be the ideal scenario. I think what the NFL has told us from time to time is 2 things. 1, it takes 2 to tango. You got to find that partner to move back. And 2, many general managers and franchises will operate with this mindset. If we like a guy enough that we would take him at pick 12, why risk it to move back at pick 18? You take him, you either like him or you don't. And if you don't like him, then don't take him at 12. Don't take him at 18. Don't take him at 28, right? Like, I consider, sometimes I evaluate quarterbacks like you're going shopping for a house. Like, at some point, you either like it or you don't. It's either worth buying or it's not, right? If it's not worth buying, I don't care. If it's for $1, maybe you do it, right? But, like, the price is not going to be $1. So, I think 12, quarterback is very much in play. I think that tier of quarterbacks probably includes J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, and also Michael Penix Jr. That's the evaluation for those 3 is going to very much depend on who you're talking to. And I think the pre-draft process will also be very important for each of them because the tape is obviously there, and it's not like that's going anywhere. But as we know, being a quarterback is about not just how you perform on the field. It's about what kind of leader are you, what kind of processor are you. For some of those guys, it's going to be size. Some of those guys are going to be health, right? JJ is 6'2", 207 pounds, right? Michael Penix Jr. has multiple ACL injuries. But are those things that are things of the past that are not concerns, or are they things that will remain concerns going forward?
Man, wouldn't we love being 6'2", 207 pounds?
I'm like 6'3", 220 pounds. Right? So.
I'm actually glad to hear you say that because I've seen a lot of mock drafts that have either a defender, like a corner or outside linebacker. And as a linebacker, like, I love good defense, but quarterbacks it's a quarterback-driven league, and I think that's where the Broncos need to start.
Not only that, but like, you have Sean Payton as your head coach.
Yeah.
I don't care what pick you have. If you have Sean Payton as your head coach, he knows the operation ain't working unless you got the right quarterback.
For sure.
And, Sean, as I said, I think he kind of declared what he feels the value is for Russ in this offense. And he kind of has, like, I call it the quarterback Mendoza line. You're above or you're below it. If you're below it, you're probably not going to be on the team for very long. If you're above it, then you got a chance to win a Super Bowl because, Sean has proven that in the past. So I would not discount sort of his ability to tutor these kids. That's important. If you threw, like a Bo Nix in Denver, is it the same as throwing a Bo Nix to a team that's not got Sean Payton as their head coach? The answer is no. But how many teams are really, really thriving right now with a quarterback that's, not at the standard of the coach's liking, that doesn't have, an unbelievable group of pass catchers and a dominant offensive line, things like that. Like the formula, history has told us many times over, is you have a great quarterback, you have a chance.
Yeah.
Defense can certainly win you championships, right? Denver has seen that. But still, Payton in that version of himself was still enough processor and smart enough and heady enough that he could do what the team needed him to do to get to that Super Bowl.
Man, talking about the Mendoza, it's so perfect because it's not just the stats, because 26 touchdowns to 8 picks is what Russ had last year. That's way good enough, but it's not to Sean Payton's standard. It's not what Sean is looking for. So you have to view it through that lens. And so when you look at the draft and you look at those 3 guys who's likely going to be the pick or likely going to be the options at 12, who's the Sean Payton guy?
That's a good question. So I think Michael Penix is the most talented of the 3.
You love hearing it, Todd.
Yeah, he's a big game player. He was down in Mobile this past week. Didn't play in the game at the Senior Bowl, but he was out there at practice. He's got an aura about him. Like, it's clear the players that were there at practice gravitated towards Michael Penix Jr. More so than most quarterbacks that they would be around, right? He's got, I hate to use sort of generic, he's got an it factor, right? I mean, I was fired up being around him too. Him and Bo, comparable size. I actually thought Michael was bigger than Bo. I thought Bo would be I thought he was, to be honest with you, shorter. Both of them are around 6'2" range.
Okay.
Fairly well built, too, both of them. JJ is a wild card, right? He does not call the plays, but they had a game this past year. They won 26 straight run plays against Penn State in the second half, right? So it's a complicated evaluation. They won a ton of games at Michigan. The guy was 26-1, or the team was 26-1 with him as a starter. However, in his Big 8 final games, huge, these are the kind of games that could define his draft stock, average 150 yards a game, which again, not his fault, but still, the sample size is just different. Michael Penix is one of 2 quarterbacks, the last 10 years, to throw for 4,500 yards in back-to-back seasons. Yeah. The other one, some Patrick Mahomes guy. So there's a lot of, if you can't find, if you don't have a conclusion on Michael Penix, it's your fault. There's plenty of evidence. Bo Nix started literally more games than any other quarterback in the history of D1 football. Same deal with Bo. If you don't have your conclusion on Bo, it's your fault, not his, right? So Michael, most talented. JJ, biggest wild card. Bo is Mr. Accuracy. The guy had the single-season completion percentage record in Division I football, 77.95%, absolute surgeon. And if you know Bo Nix from the true freshman who started at Auburn, you have to delete that part of your brain, or that chapter of his career from your brain, because he's such a different player then compared to where he is now. Whereas I think Michael Penix is kind of the same guy he was at Indiana. He was just there was only so much he could do dragging an Indiana team as opposed to playing in Washington where he's got 3 stud receivers. He was awesome at Indiana. We just didn't talk about it that much because the team wasn't very good.
Yeah,
totally. I'm curious what you think of the Broncos receivers, because they're $20-30 million bucks over the salary cap. They can save about $10 million each, moving on from Tim Patrick or Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. And Tim, you could probably restructure, do something like that. But you got Marvin Mims there too.
Yeah.
Little Jordan Humphrey played a role. Brandon Johnson had some moments. What do you think they do there?
So Jeudy is the most complicated one because it's a fully guaranteed deal, right?
Yeah.
And you got to decide, this past year is not going to embolden a team to make a trade for him, right? He obviously had a disappointing season this past year, but the very best version of Jerry Jeudy, which we saw in the final, 3 or 4 games of the 2022 season, was awesome. He had a 3-touchdown game against the Rams, and you're like, geez, this guy reminded us why he was not just a first-round pick, but one of the great Alabama players over the past decade or so. Cortland, just unbelievably steady, and just think the world of him as a player, and think he's as good as it gets as a human too. Those are probably the kind of guys you want to have around your franchise for as long as you can. And for a guy who famously, I guess, had 4 touchdowns over the 3 seasons prior, comes out with 10 last year. I'd have to look closer at the specifics of keeping versus moving on from him, but I think Cortland Sutton deserves to be in the 2024 plan. And then Tim's such a hard one, right? Because obviously a really good player when he's healthy.
Yeah.
But this is 2 straight years of basically missing the entire season. Marvin Mims excites the hell out of me. Second-round pick. a year ago should excite most fans, but he just feels like it seems obvious to me that there's got to be massive plans for him. So Judy would probably be the one that's most compelling this offseason. But if you told me that they decided against quarterback at pick 12 because one of those top receivers fell into their laps, wouldn't totally cross that off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And
I would be. It's probably not like priority A, but like in terms of positions where you tell me like, all right, if they used it there, I'd be like, I could understand it. It would be on the list, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, 100%. And one of those teams that needs a wide receiver is the Chiefs, and the Broncos are in this just awful reality of realizing what Mahomes is in this division.
It's
and
tough,
there's kind of two different trains of thought of how the Broncos should approach this.
Yeah.
One is like build as good of a team around the quarterback as you can, kind of like the San Francisco 49ers and the success they've had. And then the other train of thought is like, do anything you can to go and get the quarterback to then compete against Patrick Mahomes, whether it's trading as far up in the draft as you can for Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams. What approach do you think the Broncos should take?
I think that what you mentioned at the end about like trading up, there's just a significant risk for any team that considers that now. And I think that the NFL does deal with recency bias like we all do in life, but we'll see where Bryce Young ends up. But can you imagine the scar tissue that probably exists right now in Carolina? Like you may have traded up and just taking the wrong guy. Like if they made that trade for C.J. Stroud and he played like he did this year in Houston and Carolina, we'd be like, first of all, the head coach would still be there. The GM would still be there. They'd all have raises as well, right? But such a narrow margin. And so the price is just so prohibitive. It's not that, like I tell people often, that it's not about the potential of what it could be. It's about the potential about what it might not be that's scary, right? Like in order to justify the cost that it would take to go from 12 to probably 3 or 2, you're talking about, I would think, at least 12 plus the 2025 first, plus a 2026 first. You don't have a second-round pick this year. So, sure, if you plop Jaden Daniels down in Denver, it would make things a whole lot better this year, but the resources available to keep this as a sustainable model going forward are just harder to come by. And so in terms of like how you build the roster, Patrick Mahomes, best player on the planet, has a chance to go down as maybe the greatest ever by the time it's all said and done. Certainly already in the debate for, probably top 2 or 3 in my estimation. Ultimately, though, I think that like the things that give him the most trouble are the things that give every quarterback a lot of trouble, right? So like if I'm Denver, I want to continue to have premium edge rushers on my roster. I want to have, they don't make Pat Surtains on trees, but like I want to have as many of those as I can get on my roster, right? I want wide receivers that impact the game every single week, and I want an offensive line that keeps my quarterback upright. There are certain positions that just, like I don't think the way that you beat the Chiefs is having the best inside linebacker do in the NFL or the best safety do in the, like those are obviously important things right now, but like you need to have the guys that play these positions that like are going to impact him the most on every single play. I want a pass rusher that's going to be in his ear from snap one until the final snap of the game.
Yep. That makes 100% sense. And Field went
easiest for me to say, right? Just go get one of those. So,
When I asked you to be on, you said, I'm down to talk anything. Avs, Nuggets, anything. I mean, the way you just broke down this Broncos team, you know that about all 32 teams. That's insane.
My appreciation for the Joker. Yep. And it's not like, people get pissed off when you say, like, I didn't realize how good the Joker is. Like, the guy's been doing it for a half decade now at this level. It's more just like when you don't get the chance to watch him every night and you get to watch him, like, every 14 days, you're just like, man, this is freaking sweet. And in a league where it's like every time I turn, like, I live in Connecticut, so you get Brooklyn Nets, New York Knicks, and Boston Celtics games. And it's like every time you turn on the game, you're just like, who's out? Like a back-to-back? Like this guy's out, this guy's out. 3 starters are out. You're just like, the Joker, unless he missed 1 game so far this season. The guy's out every night. So anyways, I could talk about him. I could wax poetic on him for a while. Exciting. Hopefully, do we think if my math is correct, there's 48 hours, 47 hours and 59 minutes till the NBA trade deadline. Are they making a move or no? Feels like Michael Malone was sort of signaling a couple
There might be
ago.
like something small, like back of the roster, like get a backup center, but I doubt it. I think they're done.
I thought that Michael Malone's comments a couple nights ago where he was kind of like, I don't think Calvin's going to be burning up the phone lines, was sort of like, all right, they're not. But like, they are fun. I have a ton of respect for not just the pieces that have been there for a while, but like it's been fun to see, like when you step into that role as Calvin Booth, like it's not that they've done something significant under his watch, like traded Aaron Gordon or MPJ or something like that, but they've, at least in my view, like kind of addressed how they go about the margins differently. And that has seemingly helped them a lot because they identified that they're not going to be in the market anymore for $15 million players. We got to find guys that pick, what was Julian Strother, like pick 30 or something like that?
Yep.
Hey, you got to hit on those, and they seemingly have done a good job with that. The high floor players have worked out so far for them.
100%, and you need that on any team, in any sport.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna end it here for you. Which team in Colorado has the best chance of winning a championship next? Probably between Nuggets and Avs, but if you want to throw Broncos in there and go crazy.
Don't even bring up the Rockies.
Yeah, no.
Don't even bring up the Rockies.
Yeah, we're on the next year for the Rockies. And it's still 2 months from the start of the season, unfortunately. No, it's the Nuggets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the West, I mean, both conferences at the top seem to have some strength, but the West, I checked that state, and it's like it feels like it's been kind of a meh regular season in some ways for Denver, and then I think I saw their half game out of first right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
It doesn't feel like they've been playing full throttle. They've had a couple not uncharacteristic losses, but I mean, as an athlete, you can attest to this, right? Like, it's just a little harder to get up every single night when you know that whether we're the 1st seed or the 6th seed, we're going to be good come playoffs.
Yep.
And I see this every time I watch a team play the Nuggets. They get everybody's best shot.
It's
Every
crazy.
time, yep.
Tell you what, though, I had so much fun watching that Celtics-Nuggets games a few Fridays ago.
Yep.
That's high level. If we get those two teams in
Yep.
June, the NBA is going to be in terrific shape because they feel to me like, all things being equal, the two teams that are probably at their – if we played every game as a 7-game series, like I'd be betting on those two.
Do you need a Nuggets hat for that since you're going to be surrounded by
Do we have
Boston
them?
fans?
I think I actually do have some. I had a sweet Carmelo old-school Nuggets jersey. I think I still have that. My wife might have made me toss like half of them, but we're moving soon, so I got to go through a bunch of boxes, and I do think my Melo jersey is in there somewhere.
Oh, good. Well, awesome. This has been awesome, Field. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to your
We'll do
mock
it again
draft
tomorrow,
too.
right? For
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, next Wednesday. So be prepared. If you have mean comments, instead direct them to the DNVR coverage. No, I'm just telling you right now. Like I'll spill the bean. It's going to be a quarterback, and I get it. People are going to be disappointed because they're going to say there's no way you can take that guy 12, and I'm going to tell you just go read every recap of previous drafts. Quarterbacks, they're just going to go higher than you want them to, and deal with it. And just
100%.
deal with it. I'm not trying to be, sort of. I don't want to sound condescending, but I just think these guys are going to go higher than people realize.
100%, and we've seen it in Denver since Payton retired. You have to have a quarterback, especially with Sean Payton. When you invest in Sean as your head coach, you're investing in the quarterback position.
1,000% the case. So I hope they get it right this offseason, and I will be fascinated to see what the market looks like for Russ.
Yep.
Is he? If they end up cutting Russ, it's obviously going to be difficult to trade him. Now I know we got to go, but is he on the free agent market a 1-year, $20 million quarterback? Is he a 2 for 60? Is he a 3 for 100? The further, the more years, probably the higher the number is because, that it shows the legitimate interest. If it's a 1 year, it's kind of like acknowledging, like Baker last year, right? Like not totally
100%.
sure. That to me would be fascinating. How many suitors and what's the number for Russ?
And what could be so fascinating and a nightmare situation for Broncos is he could sign potentially the Raiders, and it could be a vet minimum deal because he's getting paid from the Broncos regardless. Now, he wouldn't do that for a multi-year deal, but a potential 1 year. And could you imagine if it's the Raiders and he goes out and does 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions under a coach that was willing to work with him a little more?
Yikes.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna offer no comment to Zach. He's the maniac here.
You're a smart man, Field.
I try to keep it between certain beakers here that just don't want to piss anybody off.
Man, really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you so
Likewise,
much for
guys. Thanks
rocking
for
and
having me
rolling
on.
with
Good
us,
talk to
Field.
you all, and hopefully I'll see you guys around the rest of the week here.
Absolutely.
Alrighty.
Yeah. Thank you for your insight, Field.
Of course.
Thank you.
See you guys.
All right.